This is the Inspired with Captain James.
A candle loses nothing for lighting up another candle. This wisdom is literally exemplified by men like Tom Boyer and my guest at The Inspired. Like Tom, Bob recognizes education as a tool for community empowerment by developing transformational leaders who boldly confront the challenges that their community faces to bring about a lasting change. Ladies and gentlemen, as we continue to engage with Mr. Bob Mwiti in this next episode, we are looking forward into the future with hope and great optimism as our youthful and brilliant Kenyans continue with what Bob is referring to as the brain gain pursuit in America. Looking back to the impact that Tom Boyer's initiative had, we are drawn to a small village on the slopes of Mount Kenya in Nyeri. A young, beautiful girl named Wangari is born and raised in a typical African rural setting. As she grows, Wangari is so fascinated by the beauty of nature. She would get an opportunity to pursue her higher education here in the United States through Tom Boyer's initiative, just like the young Kenyans benefiting from Bob's initiative. Wangari earned a degree in environmental studies and returned to Kenya after her studies. She was shocked by the widespread deforestation and environmental degradation and decided to do something about it. She started planting trees. At first, people thought she was crazy, coming from America to start planting trees, but she was answering a higher calling. She persisted and eventually others began to join in. Together, they formed a movement called the Green Belt Movement, which focused on planting trees, empowering women, and advocating for environmental protection. Through their efforts, they were able to plant millions of trees across Kenya and beyond. Amidst all the challenges that Wangari faced, including opposition from the government, getting arrested and beaten for what she strongly believed, she never gave up. Wangari continued to fight for what she believed in, even when it was very difficult. Her efforts did not go unnoticed. In 2004, Wangari became the first African woman to be awarded the prestigious Nobel Peace Prize for her work in environmental protection and women's rights. Her story became an inspiration to the people around the world, showing them that one person can make a difference. While we celebrate the great success of late Professor Wangari Maathai and acknowledge her legacy that lives on today, we want to recognize the great vision of Tom Boyer that enabled her dream and the dreams of others become a reality, impacting their communities and the world at large. At The Inspired, I'm honored to continue my conversation with a man in our generation who is enabling dreams today for a greater impact tomorrow. Mr. Bob, we appreciate your great initiative. Let's pick from where we left last time.
This is the Inspired with Captain James.
Bob, seeing a problem, a big problem, and you're setting yourself out there to solve this problem. What made you think you could be able to face that challenge and solve that problem?
Right. You see, personally, I didn't have the money. Remember I told you I had left my job. And if you think of bringing people and having to worry about how to figure out how to pay tens of thousands of dollars for their studies, it's a big problem. You can't solve it with your own money. So I started thinking about it, and for me, it was more to do with believing in myself. So I went out there and started doing my own research and tried to figure out how is it possible to really get somebody here and get them sorted out when it comes to finances. You know, when it comes to finances, there's needs for tuition, there's needs for living expenses. Even that process of coming to America actually as an international student requires a lot of money. The whole process requires funds. And, I started doing my own research and trying to figure out what exactly is out there that I can be able to leverage and be able to solve this problem. Now, the good thing is I found out that it was a possibility to actually get funding for students through maybe a student loan. And then also because I came as a student, I knew that also universities also give more or less like scholarships where maybe if you're doing well in school, you can be funded. In fact, actually for me from the second semester, I got funding. I only paid, my first semester is the only semester that I had to pay full tuition. From there on, I never needed my parents to pay for my school fees. So thinking about all that, I was like, I think I can be able to use that and be able to bring people. And actually, that's really how I started. That's how we started the program called the Kenya Airlift program in 2018. To really answer your question, it was more or less to do with just believing that I could be able to solve the problem. You can also believe, but then again, you don't really action. So it has to, and that's also that consistency as well, and the patience to do things. Very, very important.
You can believe and not, that's so profound. You can believe and not create momentum, cause things. You're there believing and you're not taking action.
You are there believing, maybe you have the ability to do it, but then again, you are not putting the action into it.
Whoa.
Because I always see people like out there, maybe even they are talking of really great idea out there, like, you hear someone says, I have this great idea, but they are not executing that great idea, and the moment you don't execute, then it just remains a good idea, but you've never really executed it,
Wow. Some of the things that really inspires me is to see that kind of, faith, action-oriented people, because the Bible says faith without action is dead.
Correct.
And at times you really feel that, I have this idea and I am believing it, but still you could feel some things that paralyzes you to take action. So how would you say that you are able, how do you break that barrier of paralysis where I have this great idea, I have this great plan, then you're able to break that paralysis, which I think affects most of us?
You see, when you start something, and especially when you want to start something big, there's a lot of challenges out there. There's a lot of people actually even who will not support you. You reach out to people and, they don't support you. For example, like when we started, I tried to reach out because I realized there was actually an organization in the US, more or less like a bank, that can actually be able to lend to international students. I reached out to them and they were not picking my calls. I was like, and this is, in fact, actually, this is the only option that I had to fund the students, and they are not taking calls. And you tell them, try to say, I'm this and this and this, I'm trying this. You see, when you are starting also, not many believe in what you are doing, in as much as your idea looks really, really great.
Really good. And
yes, you go even to the bank themselves, even for your own company to start the operations and everything that is needed also. Even, when you have a new brand, new bank account, your bank itself,
you don't have traction, you don't have nothing.
Nothing. We started, in fact, actually, the school because I was thinking maybe even I can start sending students to the school that I went to for my master's, because they knew me. I called them. They were not doing anything. Nothing. I called even, I thought I could bring also students to the school that is right where I live. I live in Tampa, Florida. There's a school here called University of South Florida. I felt like maybe this is the school that I would bring students because I'm right here in Tampa, so I can even help the students once they come here. I reach out to the school. They don't care who you are, They just go quiet.
And I think also that creates that differentiator. And you mentioned about, patience
and persistence.
For sure, I think that would be a reason enough for you to say, this thing is not working. I'm going back to my job, to a job that you still had your papers and you could still get a job. And what is it that really kept you going?
Now, you haven't even had the whole story now. So when we started also, you see now you have the problem of figuring out funding in the schools and all those things on this end. But also there's also a big challenge that was lying ahead of me of also convincing now the people that you want to bring
that you can
to
bring
buy,
them.
yes, to buy into your idea that you can actually bring them. So when we started, when I started the program in 2018,
yes,
and I rolled it out that year, I was only able to convince 3 people to join the program, and one of them was someone who was related to me. So basically 2 people.
In a whole 365.
Whole 365 days, and you are saying you have a business. Imagine that. You've started a business. You think it's a great business. It's a great idea. You start this business, and the only people, the whole year, you only have 3 customers. One of them is someone who is related to you. At least they don't doubt you that much. 3 people.
So it's a tough journey. And
very tough.
I know the journey of entrepreneurship, it's not for the faint-hearted. Now, a whole year, you pushing and getting 2 students, you're not backing off. You are, you're on that journey. What keeps you sustained? Or did you have, something that could back up? Or how were you able to raise some cash to keep you afloat?
Okay, so
yes, this is America. The costs are crazy.
Yes.
I mean, yes.
It in fact actually gets so bad because I had left the job. Now I started looking for other, IT also, it's very possible for you to work from home. So I started now looking for other opportunities. I didn't want to go back to my old company. I had left them, in a nice way and all that, but also, there's that embarrassment also when you have, when you left the company, the buddies that I used to be in job with, they know that you started something. I can't go back. So, but I started looking for something. Also, I actually got a gig somewhere with another client, consulting gig. So I was doing that on the side. After things were not going fine. Yeah, around 2019.
You're doing something, and then it's able to feed this one. I think.
Yeah. So it was able now to support me and my family and all that, because at the end of the day, you have to eat. You can't just stay and nothing is.
And you're hoping that the business is gonna work.
Yes.
I think also in terms of being pragmatic, you have the big vision and something that you're trying to accomplish, and also being so practical that, fine, this one, I'm not letting this go, yet I have to do what I need to do right here to pay the bills, to keep my head above water. I think something inspired to hear that you could quickly solve that as a problem and see this one is taking too much time. And now my plan, in as much as this is taking probably 100% of your time, probably split a portion of that and get something going to keep you afloat. Is something that could help in terms of keeping the momentum and the energy going. This is quite inspiring from your also humble background. Who would you say really influenced you in terms of having that sort of a fighting spirit, a resilience, a believe in more? And I'm asking this because I grew up in rural Kenya, Nakuru Elementaita, so it's a small village and it's very dry. Yeah. And at times when you grow in a so depressed setup, it becomes very difficult for you to believe in more. Like there can be more for me and for others.
Yeah.
And my greatest inspiration or influence in my early life was my mom. I was brought up by my mom, and she happened to have been divorced with 7 kids. So I'm 8th born. There she is, seeing how she could make things happen in her small, big way, was really something that really inspired me to believe in more. That even my journey from that small village, it was a journey of faith, action also, in as much as you have the hope. Who would you say was your greatest influence in your life to capture that fighting infused in you?
I told you earlier that I was born when my parents were in school. So I lived with my grandparents, and my grandparents were very poor. That's actually why I couldn't even go to the school of my choice, even after I had passed so well. So I had seen poverty. And if you've seen poverty, you don't want to go back there. One interesting thing about me, just the year I was doing my KCSE, so my dad actually came into my life, And apparently my dad also, at that time, my dad had left and gone to the UK, although I didn't know him. So he had gone to the UK, and actually was doing very well there. And I didn't know him, and then, I had to be introduced to him by relatives and all that. So that, and that's how he came into my life. So, and when he came into my life, in fact, actually, that's even how I was able to go to Strathmore, because also, how can someone who was struggling even to get into Nairobi school and all that end up even going to Strathmore,
Yeah.
Yeah, Strathmore is so expensive. That's how I ended up going to Strathmore University, because now my dad was in my life, and actually he's actually the one who sent me to the US.
Oh.
Now, when I got, because at that point now I was living, the life that my dad had really put me in, and having seen my dad, because he's a successful businessman back in the UK, I had tasted both worlds,
Yes.
being poor up to around when I was 18, and now, I could afford a lot of things, even coming to America, actually, even going to school. Me, I didn't have any problems, funding my education for masters was never a big deal. It was all paid for. I didn't have any problems. But because back home, I knew, because me, I grew up in the village, local public primary school. I used to be, kicked out of school for so many days because of school fees. I knew the challenges, like I knew the problems, that typical people face, and that's really inspired me, the fact that, because even my dad himself actually had a almost similar kind of background like me, where he was brought up by his stepmom and, all those things, and then he didn't have anything, and somehow he found himself in the UK and he did well. So he's the one that I started looking at, because he's one of those people that I could see was successful. And that really pushed me also, because once I got here, I was like, I've been brought to America. There's a lot of opportunities here. I better do whatever I have to do for me to be successful. That's really, it was more or less like my role model, I would say, my dad.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I think we can't underestimate the influence of the people in our inner circle, because my story also, I can relate to what you're talking about. I mentioned growing up in a small village, but one of the things that also I would say contributed even for me to believe in, bigger and greater and more abundance, is that my mom, having separated with the husband, and I'm born out of wedlock, to this now man I saw last while I was in class 3. But in his absentia, my dad now, my mom could tell me how abundant and how great that man was. So I had an image of a great father whom I didn't see, and whom I came later to meet while I, when I was 24 years old.
You kind of like have similar story to mine.
I remember one December, I just decided, because my mom, before she passed on, told me how I could get him. He's in Nyeri somewhere. So on a December, I decided to go look for him. So I met this man, and we really connected. At first, because it's somebody who had not grown, you don't have that.
Yeah, like strangers. Yeah.
Yes. So we were, distance. We could talk once in a while, even, But then I was working in a company, and I got transferred from Nakuru back to Nairobi, where I had started. Yeah. And he was working in Thika. And he was one of the chairman of these big farms. By then, they were doing now these off-plan projects, real estate developments. And I was really inspired by what he was doing,
Yeah.
So he played in later years of crystallizing a sense of identity. Because when we look at the core of what really gives you a push in life, I think it's a sense of identity. And I would want you to talk about something. And I know this is men being vulnerable and talking about some deep stuff that we don't normally hear about. What is your take on the role of, having a sense of identity settled as a person in pursuit of your goals and dreams?
For me, when I was growing up and not having my parents around me, at some point I really used to ask myself a lot of questions, and no one used to answer them. You know, when you are little, you don't know anything. In fact, actually, initially when I was growing up, I used to think my grandma was my mom. I used to think my grandpa was my dad. My mom got married somewhere else when I was, I don't know, maybe 4 years old. I never saw myself living with my mom. I never seen myself living with my dad. So initially it was me and my grandparents, and I used to think they were my parents, you know. But when I started growing now, and I was around class 7 or 8, I started, you know, and because my grandparents, they were very, they didn't want me to know these things. They were very
too much. So they're trying to protect you from
He
all.
protected me so much. They never really wanted me to know anything out there that, you know, they are not my parents, or, you know, all those things. But now you see, you can't hide for that long, because now even, you know, once you're a big boy now, you started hearing, you know, I'm passing by and someone would say, even the neighbors out there, they'll say, oh, the boy looks like the dad. And I was like, who is the dad? Do I look like, you know, some of those things. And, you know, I start knowing slowly that I have a father, you know, who I don't know. And it was very, you know, it started bothering me a lot, but I couldn't actually ask, because I grew up as a very shy kid. You know, I didn't want to ask any questions. So, you know, for me, it was just whatever you are told, that's it. You can't ask any questions, that's it, you know. So I grew up without just asking myself a lot of questions. And when it got now to a point where my dad came into my life, and I was able to know now, you know, I have a father. Even I was able now even to adopt his, you know, his surname. You know, it gives me another identity, you know, another feel like, you know, I'm Bob, I belong to this man, you know, and I could look at him and try to look at myself. Do we even look alike? And I could see that, you know. And because even I had a lot of people saying like we look alike, you know, we have similar characteristics, you know. He was good in school as well. I was very good in school, you know, academically. I was really good student. So all that, brought that identity in me, you know, that you know, I'm from this background, you know, I'm from this, and you know, that's really what really has been, you know, has been able to push me even to do what I've been able to achieve, because having that, you know, belief in you that, you know, you have family and you have, you know, people that you associate with, it makes a big difference, you know. Makes a big difference. And like I said earlier, you know, for me, I mean, the person who really inspired me actually, and who was more or less like my role model, it's my dad, because I could see what he had been able to do for me. Because coming to America, for me, by the way, when I was growing up, my dream was to go to Nairobi. That was my dream.
That looked like the big city at a distance.
That was like the biggest dream that I would dream of, because for me, growing up in Meru, I had never been to Nairobi. I think the farthest I had gone was like maybe around 30 miles away from.
And here you get a man who looks like you and is in the UK. So
he looks like me. He's in the UK, you know. He's to me, because me, when I was even in college, actually, I used to live well. Actually, I used to drive to college, you know. He put me in a very nice home, you know, somewhere in Lavington. You know, Nairobi, when you are living in Lavington, you know, you are good.
Yeah.
So I was basically transformed from that kid who used to have nothing to actually a kid who used to do very well. I mean, driving back home as a student when in college, it's a big deal, you know.
And that, of course, gave you a sense also of self-esteem, I would imagine.
Self-esteem. I'm telling you, initially, I could, you know, poverty. You know, poverty is very bad. Sometimes it makes you even.
I think that somebody said poverty dehumanizes, and I see. You know, when you're talking about you imagining Nairobi, growing up in elementary, our place, it's, you know, flat and hilly, and not. I mean, distance hilly, Mount Narok, the other side, and very plain grounds. And I remember I could stand near our small grass-thatched house in the evening.
Yeah.
Having never gone to Nakuru town, I could see, you know, lights flickering from very distant.
From far, yes.
From far, Gilgil. You can
Yes.
be able to see the Gilgil from from my village. So I could create now the imaginations of the life in that
Yeah.
place where there is lights and everything is. And man, so even now the inspiration or what was possible, not just even to go beyond anywhere else, but
Yeah.
where you can see. Because I
Yes.
could look at this side, I could see Gilgil, look the other side, I could see Nakuru town and
Yes.
see the lights. And now
Yeah.
the total darkness in the village.
Yeah.
And then I could get inspired. But one of the great things that I can really relate to what you're talking about in terms of identity, and I know these are subjects we have not been able to unpack as Africans because I think we are too much by where is the next meal coming from. What are you talking or asking about your father or your whatever? What
Yeah.
significance, as in we tend to push some of those things behind, like we make them non-issue. And I
Yeah.
think with all the changing dynamics in terms of family, I think it is something that we need to rethink as a people, as a community, and see how it affects us and chasing our goals and self-esteem and some, as a deep lying issue.
It does.
I know it's significant from a point of being there.
Yes.
And I'm glad you can be able also to point out that that's something that has an impact into the journey of
Yes,
success
it
and
does.
inspiration.
Absolutely, it does. Yes.
The things I won't want to let you go before you sharing with us.
No problem.
So I would want to get your mindset in terms of your decision making.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have one that you could pick from the many decisions that you've made that was really big decision you had to make in your journey that is still unfolding? And how did you make that decision? Yes.
All right. Now for that, and I'll go back maybe to my career. Yeah. So, like I said, I used to have a very well-paying job as a systems analyst. Sometimes that can tie you down. Good thing that can make you not pursue bigger dreams. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, here you are living the American dream, you have a home, you are driving a car, you are able to afford your day-to-day life, you can be able to maybe help family back home here and there. So I was doing fine. I was basically living the American dream, I would say, and that can be a very comfortable, I think that's one of the most comfortable
comfort zone.
A very, very comfortable zone. That comfort zone is not good also to some extent. And for me to really get out of that comfort zone and go out there and actually decide, hey, you know what? I'm going to do something. I'm going to stop this, because actually even the job that I told you later on I went and looked for, I didn't even stay there for long, because you see also at the end of the day, when you have your own baby that you want to grow, it's very hard for you to concentrate on these other things. So we need to try to get another job here, because I got another gig. I couldn't last for more than 2 months. I was kicked out.
Yes. Because of course now your attention is on your baby that you're...
Yeah, every time. Like I cannot... And you see at the end of the day, if in this tech world where you have to really solve complex problems for companies, and here you are not delivering, and you are mostly working on your own thing on the side, they won't let you stay there for long. So anyways, to answer your question, for me to really decide to leave that job was a big deal, and like up to now, I'm like, I think I made the best decision for myself. It would have been very easy for me to just sit there and say, you know what, I have a job, there's no point. Because actually, even when I left the job in 2018, at that time I had my grandpa here. I had come with him from Kenya, so I had brought him here, and I told him, hey, grandpa, I've left my job. And he's like, are you serious? You've left? I used to work for a big bank institution here in Tampa. It's like, you've left that job, and you used to know how much I used to earn, and he couldn't believe
it. What are you looking for? A good thing standing by way of your best, and and the comfort zone. And I know also from experience, I worked in a job and I could share with some people close to me, like, I want to quit this job, a corporate job in Kenya, well paying, and everybody's dreaming and want to, be occupy the spot that you're in. But still, deep down, you have something that, tells you could do more, you could achieve more, and then you are. I understand that doesn't happen in a vacuum. So how were the people around you? Were you married then when you were making this decision? I understand you mentioned about your grandpa was around and he's like, how are you going to leave this job?
I was actually very newly married. In fact, actually,
that's when you're making some crazy moves, man.
Yeah. In fact, actually, my wife, she was pregnant at the time. So, but she was very supportive, actually. So, I think she thought I was crazy because we had not stayed for a long time also after we had met. So, we had been together, I think, for like a year or so together. But I think she had seen enough of me to see this guy, maybe he's crazy. Because we started the company, I told her to quit working, to quit the job so that we can concentrate on our work, on our business. So all of us, we had no jobs. So we were all into this, both of us. But you see, let me tell you this, if you really want to put your effort into something, when you have two things at the same time also, because I could have really chosen to just keep on the job and just do this thing on the side, slowly, and making sure that my job is going on fine, I'm not fired or anything of the sort, But when you are in that comfort zone, it becomes very hard for you to go all in, all in.
So your approach is go jump to the deep end.
Yeah. Yes. So basically, this is it. This is what I think I've figured it out. Although, because also it's also at the end of the day, if you're out there as an entrepreneur, you can't really figure things out completely.
When you are starting, before you start.
Yeah. So for me, what really kept on pushing was like I tried to see far ahead, and I was like, is this thing workable? And for me, it was a yes or no. And since I could tell myself there was a yes, then I was in.
You're good.
Yeah. And I think that's really what most people out there should always think of, right? If you're into something, just try to ask yourself these questions. Is this something that actually is to do? If you can tell yourself that it's possible to do, then go for it.
Wow.
If you have no doubt, because for me, actually, I had no doubt that it wouldn't be possible. I knew that something would work out, even though I didn't have all the solutions there. But I could clearly see there was something. I could be able to figure things out.
Wow. What was that tipping push? Sometimes you have the faith, you have the belief.
Yes.
But sometimes you can stand on that and say, maybe I'll try next time, I'll do this, or the timing may not be the right time for you to do that. As you're saying, timing, because I'm seeing your wife is pregnant.
Yes.
She's out of job, you're out of job. So what was that tipping point for you to
I didn't quit like today and then start the business the following day. No. So what I did was I had the idea, I registered the company. So it took me about maybe a few months, and maybe 3 months or so to figure out. But before then, actually, I started another business. It didn't work out. You see, also sometimes.
So you had a history of failing.
I had a history of failure. Yeah, I had started a tracking business, to be specific. So I had started a tracking business. I had lost around $50,000. Went to drain, a few months earlier, but I learned a lot from that business because it's a business that I didn't know what to do. Those businesses that you are pushed into it because someone told you there's money, but you have no idea how to run it. You have no idea how it works. So that was me,
Boom.
So it didn't work out. And, I lost the money and I was like, okay, fine. But I have to do something else. When I started this other initiative, it was more or less like a consulting company, training people. And then out of the challenge of not having really good people to train, then I started thinking of a way to be able to now find those people that we can be able to train and get the opportunities here. And started thinking of where to get them from Kenya, So it became a bigger now thing, out of that.
Yes.
So 4-5 months later, The business was, we are doing okay. It was not like initially that bad because we could get a few people here, we train them and we are charging them, and I could make almost as much as what I was making earlier. But now when I quit, that's when I started. A few months down the line, I started seeing all these problems and not getting as many clients as I was expecting, and now I started thinking of doing the bigger thing. And now this bigger thing, this is now where it became too much work. You are trying to figure out now, because this is a big initiative.
Yes.
You are trying to solve a big problem, actually bigger than what you thought. And at that point also, there was not many people who are coming to our company and all that. So that's really where the challenge was. But initially, I didn't really quit. Just, so sometimes also, in as much as also you want to just jump,
Yes.
Maybe it's good to jump, but also at the end of the day, also don't jump foolishly.
Do a transition.
Yeah.
Have the sheep and you got some.
Yeah. Yes. Have the drive to jump, But
yes.
also don't jump just like that without knowing exactly you are jumping to go where. You understand?
Yes.
Yeah. So you have to balance, because sometimes also people, maybe you might tend to take so long before you make that decision to move ahead and do something, and become
so there's a balancing. You balance and know when to release the clutch and accelerate.
Yes, exactly. Also you have to understand there's a point where you can get into something and become so hard to do, or maybe there is no business there, and you are faced with the decision of whether to kill it or keep on proceeding. But also you have to kind of like strike a balance of when to kill it or keep on going, because you can keep on doing something and there is nothing that you're gonna work on. You understand what I'm saying? It may not work out. For example, the previous business that I had, honestly, it got to a point where I was like, oh, this is not my thing, and I stopped it.
Yeah.
I was like, this is not me. I can't do this. Of course, there is money that I put in, but this, I cannot continue. I don't see myself into this, and I stopped it. I lost the money. That was it. But this other one, even in as much as I could see there was a lot of challenges, I could actually see something. Even though there was no success at that point, I could clearly see something. I could see us bringing students. I could see us doing some amazing things. So there was something that I was always seeing beyond just what you are seeing at that point.
That is, when you use that keyword like seeing, because this is seeing now beyond what, and that of course brings the essence of what faith is. The Bible says clearly that faith is substance of things hoped for, evidence of things not yet seen physically, And here you are talking about seeing something and you're not. What is your take on the role of a vision? A vision in terms of pursuit and persistence, and you breaking the challenges and the barriers to what you want to achieve. What is your take on the role of vision?
Remember, I told you those early days when I started the Kenya Airlift program. So not many people joining, 3 people 2018. In fact, early 2019, it was 12 people who joined the program. 12. One student a month. And you are saying you have a business. 1 student a month. But again, I always felt like if this thing I keep on pushing, and people believe in it, it could be big. Like I could see the big. Although there was nothing
in the smallness. In the smallness, you could still.
In the smallness, I could see the bigger picture. In fact, actually, I used to put myself like 5-10 years from now. If I keep on doing this, now we started last year 18, 2019 we are 12, So by the end of 2019, we had enrolled 15 students into the program. I was like, if I keep on doing this, and this keep on compounding, it's something.
Wow.
Like I could see 5, 6, 7, 10 years from now.
Wow.
And if I keep on doing this, even though right now I'm just getting 1 person a month, I could see something, And guess what? After 2019, then Corona, COVID.
the world shuts down. No travel.
No travel, nothing, you can't do anything. And even by that time, actually, still, we didn't have any official working partnership within the university yet. I was like, you know what? Sometimes maybe God prepares you for something. Also when you are so small, you have enough time to connect the loose ends and make things work. The smaller you are, the better for you. In as much as you want to
At
grow
that
faster.
time.
Yes. It buys time. It buys time, especially when you want to really do something big. And when I look back, I'm like, it's good that, initially I had 3 people. After the second year, I had like 1 every month, because it gave me enough time to be able to figure things out slowly, without so much pressure. Because at the end of the day,
calls, every word.
Yeah. Remember, I told you earlier, like, even the partnership with the schools and lending partners and all that, we didn't have them initially. So it gave me time also to figure these things out slowly. What can I do? What I started doing is we started putting in applications from the students themselves, and then later on, actually, they reached out to me on and they said, you know what, you are getting a lot of these students, and because when we used to put those applications, we would put my company as the referral source, and they started seeing, where are these people coming from,
Wow.
asking for funds, and they reach out. They look for the company. When they went to the website, my name was there as one of the founders. Then they went to LinkedIn, they reached out, and that's how they came to me.
This is the Inspired with Captain James.
Our next episode.
You see, what is needed out there in the market, it's more about job skills. Don't rely too much on academic. Yeah, what you learned in school, it's good, but may not be good enough.
This is the Inspired. Thank you for listening. Until next time, go and make it happen.